Here we have, some Cerium Elites on a track. Has a center crankset. Odd. The 600 Ultegra. Carbon CLV back 2300 truck. This is a workhorse. Very popular bike in the early 2000s. Let's review and see if this bad boy back in shape after this.
Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles.
Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with the guy. Hi, I'm Justin, the guy. Obviously, of a garage shop. Taking scary how to use bikes one bike at a time.
If you like these videos, please like and subscribe.
Welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with the guy. Hey, I'm Justin the guy in this whole bike series where I take scary how to use one bike at a time. Today we're going to be talking about a Trek 2300. 2300 has been around for a long time. Yeah, nowadays, if you look at numbers, it's probably a 3 point something or a 1.5 or whatever the case may be. Back in the day, that's a good stable bike around, I would say 15 years at least. That particular model's been around. This is one of the later ones in that gen, and it does have Ultegra componentry on it, which is pretty awesome, which is the step down below of Dura-Ace. In addition to, it's a good aluminum frame, also made in the United States. So let's take a look at this bad boy and let's review. Tear into it right now. Ooh, looky this. Looky what we have here. These are pretty light. Back in the day of the 2300s, what I remember, in Parker Bikes days, they had 3 main tubes, and you probably can find a few of those out there that have the aluminum bonded design back then. This is the newer iteration before they went to the 1.5, the 2.3, that kind of modeling, which is mostly aluminum frame. This actually does have a chromoly OCLV Optimum Compact Low Void, whichever that means, and the carbon, which is proprietary just for Trek. They have their special carbon. Same thing with the OCLV carbon Bontrager front fork. Can't miss that bad boy. But what's kind of cool about this bike, in a sense, is this is when the transition, not from, but directly anyway, is actually a few years later. But this was when they switched it from bonded tubing to welding. Who taught them how to weld? Gary Klein did. And Gary Klein taught them how to high-end welds, which you saw on the Klein lines, which were made by Trek. Before Klein, they acquired Klein, they were basically bonding everything together. So, needless to say, during those acquisitions of Klein, Gary Fisher, Bontrager, Lamond, you got kind of, those technologies obviously trickled into the other lines. Even though the geometries were different between each one of them, which is nice because if you're one or the other, you'd actually have something to talk about saying, well, it's basically a Mon, but it's painted Trek, or vice versa, what have you. Anywho, going back to this particular bike, this had the Ultegra ST, or this is 6500, this is ST 6500. 6500 or 6510 series from Shimano was their Ultegra line. They had them from the late 90s to early 2000s, about 5-6 years, workhorse componentry. Still find a lot of it on today's market. And it's just good stuff. It works, and you can get parts to switch out and so forth. Let's do a little diagnosis if you bought this used. Well, looking at it, it might have a little bit of scuffs and scrapes on it. The tires themselves are kind of dried out and used up, so one, you're going to need new tires. Bar tape is always a good one to put on. It's not like you don't want to wear other people's socks. It's a sweat point. Then in that case, you're looking at cables and housing. For me, I switch that out anyway. It's always a good lift to make the bike performance as high as it can be. So you're looking at those things. If you're not on a clipless, you're going to have to do platform pedals. So you're looking at that extra expense there. In addition to, it's definitely going to need, I believe, a chain when I check this in the field. So checking the chain, put the chain checker on, it goes all the way over. So the chain definitely needs to be replaced. That may be question of the cassette itself might be compromised, but you can't really know that until You take that chain off, put a new one on, and take it for a test ride and put a lot of load on each one of those gears to see if it pops or jumps. See, if it jumps and pops up, it kind of means that the cassette needs to be replaced. But actually, that's a pretty small lift compared to the rest of the bike, so let's dive into this. This one has a power link or a quick link, but if you had one that didn't, you would have to use a chain tool to release the chain itself by opening it up. And this one has the power link, so these slide right out. And then you just pull the chain right through the derailleur, like so. Well, now proceed to take the wheels off. By doing so, you just release the brake in, you do the quick release, unscrew it out to pass the lawyer tabs, drops right out, then you're ready to go. So the rear one, you want to pull the derailleur down to the smallest cog, which is out of the way, unhook the brake as well, and do the quick release. There's no catches on the bottom part, so the wheel will just drop right out. And in this situation, then we check the hub, and we'll take the cassette off as long as the skewer and clean this all up in the sonic cleaner. So here we have a cassette, and this has a lock ring to it. So you need to get your chain whip to hold the cassette in place. Then you take your tool and you give it a good oomph. Option, there is more. More, you say? Push the more button. Push it. Push it. I dare you to push it. Once you push that button, you get more details about the video you are watching, in addition to all the tools that I use in the shop, as well as suggestion for improving your ride. In addition to help me provide advocacy in the cycling community, also links to other social media accounts as well as my website to find the products I actually sell and other insights in the industry. Other videos linked below. Extend your cycling experience here on YouTube. And now back to your original programming. Get a lot of oomph to release that lock ring. So like so. Once that's released, then your chain whip's job is over, and this cassette goes into the ultrasonic cleaner. All the other bits. So since I do replace all the cables and housing, I just cut these loose. And that way it's just a little bit easier to take them all apart. And I do save the extra bits of the housing to measure up when I reinstall new housing as a reference. And this also gives me an opportunity to get everything out of the way so I can get a good view of the frame and see what condition it is in. Like so. And once that is done, and I go through and I go ahead and release all. It's deep enough. There we go. All the parts. This one I need a wide wrench. Right tool for the job, right? Get that rear derailleur off. Like so. This one has some pretty good gunk, but the derailleur jockey pulleys themselves are actually still intact, not shark toothed out. So in this case, we should be able to clean it up, being in pretty good condition. Just got black in my nose. There we go. And then proceeding to the front derailleur, and I'll take the brakes off. Raison mount. So, and a clamp. Some frames, this part's built in. In this case, it is not. But the Brazon ability gives you more of a choices, and you're not just kind of stuck with the band itself. That's where a lot of these Brazons are kind of a nicer derailleur for those. And now onto the brakes. Release that cable, and then get that brake off. Like so. And these are pretty dirty, not to say, but the ultrasonic cleaner should cut out most of the gunk and grime and get it out of the way. Same thing here. I'm going to screw that out. It gets the cable. This is the front. And then to release that cable, you just take your Allen key, and there it goes. put that in ultrasonic cleaner as well. I do like to remove these little cable adjusters, housing stops as they're called. This way I can clean it underneath. When we had these built back in the day, building them new, we would put a little bit of grease underneath these to keep it from getting stiff like this. And sometimes you got to use a little bit of extra oomph, and if it gets stuck like this one, a little bit of a, it's called dry slide. It's a bike aid. A nice little needle to it. It's kind of like graphite kind of lubricator, which helps release. Sometimes you gotta let it sit there. Some people use PB Blaster, that kind of thing. This one is not nearly as stinky, so this one actually is not nearly as bad. And these, I do find they get kind of boogered up, so you clean them with ultrasonic cleaner, which is nice, and then you put some fresh lube on it, and then it makes them easier to use, and that makes it more actually functional for the rider. The idea to have this barrel adjuster here is when you're on your ride, you can actually do those kind of a micro adjustment of the housing. That way you can not booger up your rear derailleur, that kind of thing. And if you're really skilled at it, you can do that minor adjustment as you're riding, but I recommend getting off your bike and do the quarter turn at a time and not really try to do the multitask thing. That's just me. So I want to get these pedals out of the way. So I hold one side with my left hand, up against the frame, and I push it down. It's basically, when I'm pedaling forward, is to loosen, and when you pedal backwards is to tighten. In this case, slide right off like so. These are like some older Shimano ones, which some people still use. So we'll see if we can refurbish those at some point. So this crankset is definitely not original. Therefore, somewhere along the lines it had either an issue. I wouldn't say it was upgraded because it's not Dura-Ace or a newer version. What I think may have happened is it's one of those scenarios where you take it to a bike shop and all they know is new and they do not deal with anything used or refurbished. Well, in this case, most likely they took it to a bike shop and they only deal with new, and since they only deal with new, they're not going to look at used or refurbished or go online for you. I mean, if you sourced it out yourself on eBay or what have you, you could have found a matched crankset, which was probably just in as good shape. But they like to talk scary because they want to like get you to buy all their stuff new. So there's kind of a tricky bit, a fine line. Well, not a fine line, but it's a line that they look at when they're looking at selling you parts versus you bringing in parts they don't like because they want to make the money off the parts. Me, on the other hand, I actually prefer you to go find your parts and bring them in and have me install them because I'm a garage shop mechanic and I don't have vendors, and I'm not looking to make money off the parts itself unless I have some used already. That is a tank compared to the 600 Altengra, but I'm still going to keep it on there because I don't have a replacement that's a dead-on match. So I'm going to go ahead and keep these on there. Since it is newer, it's going to work just fine. But if I was you and I found this crank, I would look up, let's see, FC-6500, 6510, 6503. And it's a Shimano Altegra of that vintage, and get myself, oh, this is an awkward angle. I use my strap trick. In that case, I would be able to find the crankset that would match and replace it accordingly. Cranksets, yeah, you can find them anywhere between 50 to 100. The more you spend, the better they are. Obviously, there's going to be some new ones out there in the box still. Crazy to think that they're still around, but they know they're high value, and they're going to charge you an arm and a leg. Oh boy, I got to make that bend. There we go. So I wouldn't suggest doing that per se, but you actually can, voila. But at the end of the day, this is going to work out just fine. All right, we're at a point here that I'm going to be taking these shifters off and putting them in the ultrasonic cleaner too to clean out all that old grease, because I'm pretty sure it probably hasn't been done. And that way, get them to perform. I'm kind of hoping these are good because the caps here only have a little bit of scuffage on them. For this vintage or age, they usually get pretty dinged up because they just stick out. And this being this clean, I'm kind of hoping that they're actually in really good shape. So push that brake, then you can pull that cable right out. Loop like so. Oop. Set these two aside. Get the rear one, do the same thing. And throw that guy away. Voila! So now we're into inspecting and cleaning the frame. Now we're into cleaning and inspecting the frame. I use purple powder diluted half and half with water. The purple powder you can get at any Walmart or on Amazon. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wipe down the frame, look for any kind of damage, cracks, dings, that kind of case, just to see what I have. And just keep cleaning until it is cleaned up. Yeah, boy. Oh yeah. Got some dirty gunk. You can see it's all just super chunky down here. That way we can get all that dirt, because dirt sometimes hides those cracks. I've had one frame, I thought it was dirt and it turned out to be a crack, and that was no bueno. No good. Did not like that situation. All right. And we're getting to the head tube here. Give that all a good cleaning. Well, looks like we're doing pretty good. So there's a little bit of scuffage underneath here of the decaling from the, it looks like it's from a car rack, which they'll chew that up from the old car racks that hang from the top tube. Looking underneath here, nothing really too scary, just dirty. Little chips here and there, but all in all, overall, I think this is going to be a really good bike. That's a 56, I believe. And I just had to measure that out to kind of figure out what that size was. There's not a frame sticker. And yeah, we'll just proceed to keep cleaning the frame here. And once we get it detailed, we'll show that off with a clean componentry. If I come across any issues, I'll let you know. Definitely going to tear this tape off. It does have the larger size 31/8 stem, 31/6, or yeah, the 1.1/8 headset, which is universal in a sense that you can get a whole bunch of different stem lengths and angles, which is really nice to still make them new today. Bottom brackets, like you saw, a crankset there. Get new, or if you want to retrofit it back to its Ultegra triple, you can do that. That's the only part that's actually been switched out that's not basically OEM. This also has a carbon C-post, which is actually nice, the X-Lite for Bontrager. It is a carbon, but it's also a common size, is 27.2. So that's what's really nice about these frames is you can get a new C-post, bottom bracket, stem, even the headset's integrated, but you can still get those bearings easily and replace them. And therefore, you got yourself a bike that's easily to upgrade or keep going or do those adjustments, and it has a okay saddle on there, kind of scuffish. I think I'll replace the saddle, but you know, all into it: tires, cables, housing, chain, probably tubes, bar tape, pedals, saddle. If you're gonna get, if you really were bargain hunting out there to get parts, you can probably keep it within 100 to 150. But with the part mix that I have, the retail on it, those parts are going to be around about 200. So the cost of the bike plus 200 for parts, then you're looking at least a mid-level component, mid-level tune-up that would include those parts installed. That's actually going to cost you between 250 to maybe 350, depending on the shop and what they charge. So all in all, as the parts and labor, you're definitely looking in the $500 to $600 range. And actually, these particular bikes, I've been seeing them on the used market around 200 to 300. So that puts you under $1,000. And under $1,000, you're still getting an Ultegra componentry aluminum carbon blend with better componentry with actually steering wheels. Those wheels turn out to be fine. We're really, really golden there. And in that case, any $1,000 to $1,500 new bike is definitely not going to be able to hold up to this guy. Plus, it has a triple with multiple gears to climb up those big hills. Definitely a bonus, in my opinion. A lot of companies are going to the 1x or 2x. They're just trying to make it a newer fad kind of thing, lighter weight, cheaper, really what it comes down to, and got rid of a whole nother SKU. Because this vintage, they would have a triple version and a double version, so they'd be side by side. And you're talking about 6 to 8 model sizes, right? So you're looking at 6 to 8 model sizes, and then you are times that by 2, so they have 16 bikes to represent one model. By doing those 2x with a wide range, getting rid of the triple option, now they're down back to another 8 bikes, or even back down to 6. So is that their way of kind of bringing it down, as in SKUs, and be able to provide those bikes. The crazy thing is now they make about 18 different models of that one similar model, which is kind of insane. And they make another model which is so close to representing. It's just, they've limited, but they have also quadrupled another flavor per se within their line. And really honestly, the difference between the riding between those are very minimal, which is kind of, I don't know where they're going with this. Time will tell, because I think they're going to shrink down their SKUs again because the demand's not there. Why? Because they have too much different, they complicated it way too much, and now they're in a situation where they need to simplify it to get the consumers back in there, and also drive the prices down if they're listening at all to the consumer base. But we'll see. Time will tell. But guys like me out here will be, cranking on used bikes and getting them all ready for you. So let's dive into the rest of this and get the parts cleaned, and we'll review that momentarily after this. So here we have it. Some clean parts. Fresh off the ultrasonic cleaner. So with these brakes, I'm going to replace the pads. I have some on order, so that's going to be a fix. There's the skewers. Front derailleur cleaned up really well in a little bits. And the shifter, the rear 9-speed was really tricky to clean out. But once I got it cleaned out, it should be fine. But it was hesitating and shifting. But once we get some fresh lube in there, it'll be good to go. Got the rear derailleur blown apart and all cleaned up, as well as the cassette. And wait, that wasn't. Yeah, cleaning this, man, disfigured that outer chainring. This thing is chunky. I did have the exact same length of crank arm, which is the same vintage with the rest of this componentry. Ultegra ST 6503 or 5503 with the bond bracket. So I'll be switching that out. So that definitely gets an upgrade, as well as tires to go with the wheels I just trued, and they're clean and ready to go. Actually, these turned out really good. One tricky bit was the spoke blade on a couple of the non-drive sides were crooked. So you got to use a specific blade holder. So whoever was truing this wheel did not have one of these guys. They just kind of went with it. So yeah, kind of taking the scary out of that. All this stuff here should be pretty much in decent shape. Got a newer chain to throw on there. And lo and behold, here's the frame after detailing with a ceramic coating. Super shiny. Yeah, there's a couple little scuffers there, but I was able to get most of that out, and the point of looking actually pretty good. And the back chainstays look almost like new. I mean, look at that shine. So yeah, let's recap. Well, there we have it. We got ourselves cleaned up parts, good wheels, a decent frame, everything cleaned up good. Nothing was too scary, only really ugly that I wanted to, yeah, and this thing's a heavy chunk. So I want to get back to more matchy-matchy, get some brake pads on the way. Brake pads are like 10 bucks a set, so that's a pretty low lift. Bar tape and tires. Oh man, you're looking at the tires, as well as cleaning out some cables and housing and so forth, in addition to those extra bits. So if you bought this yourself and had to go ahead and replace that front crankset as well as other parts, you're well into close to $300 to $350, maybe $400 in parts just alone. Then you're looking at a tune-up, which for this scale it's almost overhaul, so you're looking at $250 to $350 depending on the mechanic near you. In addition to detailing, nobody does that, so I really kind of came that to showroom quality. But when you look at the end of the day, these particular bikes currently are going for 200, maybe 300 in better condition. These guys, you know, in the state it is, I would expect that to be more like 150 or so. But at the end of the day, though, once you get this all cleaned up and fixed with parts and tuned up and ready to go, you're looking at a good solid bike well under 1,000 for many miles and miles and miles ahead of it. So this bike is a 56. It's going to fit somebody within like that 5'9 to 5'10, 5'11-ish sizing, and it's going to be solid. It's going to be one of those great entry-level road bikes, lax position in a sense, kinda, and it's going to be great. It's going to hold up for whoever gets this bike. So taking it scary out of use. Yes, one more bike at a time. If you like these videos, please smash those buttons below. If you like shirts like this, you'll find some links below as well. Anywho, more information underneath in the description. Anywho, if it's nice in your neck of the wood, go out and go for a ride. This one's going to be going out for a ride in about an hour once I get this all wrapped up. And check out these beautiful pictures after this. Josh Sharp. Must be Wednesday. Bye bye, Josh. Okay, let's read.